All right, so today we're doing something pretty ambitious. We're taking on the entire history of Western music.
Yeah, we're talking Gregorian chant to gangster rap, the whole shebang. But don't worry, we're gonna break it down.
Exactly. And to help us navigate this massive soundscape, we're tapping into the entire history of music. It's this incredible resource that really digs deep into the aha moments, the unexpected connections, all the stuff that makes you see music in a whole new light.
It's not just about dates and composers. It's about understanding how music shapes and is shaped by culture, technology, even politics, the whole human experience, really.
Love it. So no time machine needed for this journey. We're starting in ancient Greece, birthplace of democracy, philosophy, those amazing white buildings, and, oh yeah, the very foundations of Western music.
It's wild to think that in a world without recording devices or even a system of writing music down, melodies were this living, breathing entity passed on through generations.
It's like a giant game of musical telephone across the centuries. I love that. But then, enter Terpander, poet, musician, innovator. He looks at the lyre and sees, well, more than just an instrument.
Terpander basically gifts us the concept of the octaves, which, think about it, is something we take for granted, but it's fundamental. It's establishing a framework for scales and modes, those building blocks of melody that are still with us today.
It's like he's writing the rule book for Western music without even realizing it.
Right.
But then, this being ancient Greece, the math has to get involved, right? Cue Pythagoras and his obsession with universal harmony through numbers.
Pythagoras, the OG math, right? But seriously, he saw the universe itself resonating with these perfect mathematical proportions, all expressed through music.
Okay, so, Pythagoras thought the universe was humming a giant, perfectly tuned symphony. That's kind of awesome. And also maybe a little intense.
Right. But here's the thing. While Pythagoras is busy calculating the music of the spheres, actual musical practice rarely adhered to those rigid mathematical formulas.
So it's like the Greeks invented sheet music and they were like, nah, we'd rather just jam, which, fair enough.
Exactly. And it highlights this fascinating tension that runs throughout music history, the pull between theoretical ideals and the raw, sometimes messy brilliance of human expression.
Music isn't just about perfect ratios. It's about emotion. It's about telling a story. Speaking of stories, this is also when the Greeks start categorizing melodies, giving them personalities, what we now call modes.
Yeah. Each mode, your Dorian, your Phrygian, your Lydian, had this unique flavor, conjuring up specific emotions. Think of it like a playlist for your feelings.
Like sonic spices, each one adding a different dimension to the dish. But the Greeks, they weren't content with just spicing up melodies. They went all in, creating full-blown musical dramas. Euripides, take a bow.
Picture this, an amphitheater bathed in the Greek sun, a tragedy unfolds, and the actors' voices are interwoven with these haunting melodies, the chorus adding layers of commentary, emotion. It was a completely immersive experience.
Music wasn't just background noise, it was integral to the story. It was the story. Talk about pushing boundaries.
It was revolutionary. And while the Greeks were busy revolutionizing musical drama, over in Rome, they were upping the ante, literally. Enter the hydraulis.
Yes, the hydraulis, a water-powered organ. We're talking next-level sonic engineering here.
Yeah.
What was it like, this ancient sound machine?
This thing was massive. It wasn't just about being louder, though. It hinted at something new, the potential for instruments to become sonic architects in their own right, to create completely new sounds.
So we've got the Greeks laying the groundwork with melody, theory, drama, and the Romans adding their own flair for the grandiose. It feels like the stage is set for, well, everything that comes next but that. Welcome back to our musical odyssey. Last time we left off with the echoes of the hydraulis ringing in our ears. This time we're venturing into the Middle Ages. Think Top 40 is different from ancient Greece. Try picturing Europe unified not by language or laws, but by the sound of Gregorian chant.
It's easy to hear chant and just think, oh, monks chanting, but that really undersells its significance. This was a time when the Catholic Church was the dominant force and Gregorian chant was its soundtrack, standardized, formalized, echoing through these grand cathedrals across the continent.
So less about musical diversity, more like a sonic symbol of a shared cultural identity. And to think, for centuries, this music existed solely through oral tradition, passed down generation to generation. Talk about commitment.
It really highlights the power of music, not just as entertainment, but as this tool for cultural transmission. But it wasn't just happening in the West. While Gregorian chant was unifying Europe over in the Byzantine Empire, a whole other chant tradition was taking root.
Right, Byzantine chant, like Gregorian's lesser known but equally fascinating cousin. I mean, it's like They were both working from the same source code melody as a way to express spiritual meaning, but they developed these totally distinct dialects.
Exactly. And just as Gregorian chant had its regional variations, Byzantine chant evolved into these fascinating subtraditions, like the Russian Anemone chant, known for its long, flowing melodies and deeply spiritual aesthetic. Really beautiful stuff.
It's just incredible how these two chant traditions developed side by side, each becoming this defining element of their respective cultures. It really drives home how music can be this universal language, even when societies are, worlds apart. But while chant was echoing through cathedrals and monasteries, something pretty major was brewing: the arrival of, well, let's just say it, a true game changer.
The organ. I mean, part of it is just the sheer size and grandeur of the instrument. You walk into a cathedral and you're met with this imposing presence. But it's more than that. The organ brought this whole new sonic palette to the table. That sustained, powerful sound, nothing else at the time could really compare. It transformed religious spaces, made them these awe-inspiring sonic environments.
That must have been quite an experience, this music practically vibrating through your very core. But the organ wasn't the only innovation shaking things up, right? This is also around the time a clever monk named Guido of Arezzo starts thinking about, wait for it, writing music down.
Guido of Arezzo, what a legend. I mean, he basically gave us the musical alphabet: ut, re, mi, fa, sol, la. The foundation of musical notation as we know it. Think about it. For the first time, you could share music accurately, preserve it, no longer relying just on memory and oral tradition. It's a big deal.
Huge EE, like the printing press for music, right? What kind of impact did this have on how music actually developed?
It's huge. Guido's system made music more accessible. Composers could now share their ideas more widely, no longer limited by geography or the limits of memory. This paved the way for more complex music, for musical education. It really changed everything.
It's like going from jamming with your friends to suddenly being able to study at a music academy. It opens up this whole world of possibilities. And speaking of new worlds, get ready for the Renaissance, a period of radical change where music truly blossoms. But we had to take a quick break before we get into that. Stick around. We're back and ready to dive into the Renaissance. Things are getting exciting. We've got upheaval, we've got innovation, we've got sheet music hitting the printing press.
It's the music industry's big bang, right? Suddenly, music is not this elite thing confined to handwritten manuscripts. It's something you can mass produce, distribute. It's the Renaissance equivalent of going viral.
I like it, sheet music. The Renaissance social media. Okay, so with all this new music floating around, things are obviously going to get more, let's say, sophisticated.
Oh, absolutely. This is where we meet a real pioneer, Guillaume Dufay. This guy was a master of polyphony, weaving together multiple melodies simultaneously. I mean, it might seem obvious now, but this was revolutionary stuff.
Okay, gotta admit, polyphony has always kind of gone over my head. Like, how do you even write that? How do you keep all those different melodies straight and make them sound good together?
Think of it like those amazing Renaissance tapestries. You've got all these different threads, each with its own color, its own texture, but they all interweave to create one big, beautiful picture. Dufay's motets, his masses, they're like that, intricate and harmonious.
So we're not talking just a melody and some background chords anymore. We're talking multiple melodies happening at the same time.
Exactly. And each one holding its own while also contributing to this bigger sonic landscape.
That's next level music making. But the Renaissance wasn't just polyphony in cathedrals, right? This is also when a certain Martin Luther steps in and adds his own twist to the story.
Luther. He knew the power of music to move people, to bring them together. He wanted everyone to feel that, not just trained choirs. So what does he do? He brings his congregational hymns. Simpler melodies that everyone can sing, easy to learn, easy to connect with.
Right, so the Reformation had its own soundtrack. This is big. And in a move that, might sound a little familiar today, this is also when music gets professionalized.
Exactly. With the first conservatories popping up, you could study music formally, train, make it more than just a hobby. That's really when music cements its place as a respected art form.
It's like the difference between, singing karaoke and training for the opera. And speaking of opera, buckle up, because we're about to head into the Baroque period, where things get a whole lot more dramatic, a whole lot more intense, and we'll save that for next time. This has been an amazing journey from ancient Greece to the dawn of the Baroque. I have to say, diving deep into music history really changes how you listen, how you think about the music we make and listen to today. So the next time you hear a song, take a moment to appreciate all the layers, all the history, all the innovation that led to that very sound. Thanks for listening.